Welcome back, everyone. Today's deep dive is into a classic, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice.
Always a good one.
It's consistently ranked as one of the most beloved books of all time.
For good reason.
For good reason, yeah. I think it goes beyond just the surface romance. Pride and Prejudice offers a lot for, say, students of literature. Like social commentary, intricate character development.
Themes that are still relevant.
Yeah. Centuries later.
And Austen does all of that, with such incredible wit and subtlety. Like, that first line?
Oh, of course.
It is a truth universally acknowledged.
First famous one.
Yes.
Yeah.
That a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
It's so funny.
It is funny, but there's more to it.
Right. On the surface, it seems like it's just reinforcing, what society expects. But I guess there's more there.
Yeah, exactly. Because in Austen's world, it was actually women who needed to get married, like desperately.
Right.
For financial security.
Yeah, for social standing.
Exactly. So she's kind of flipping things around.
Yeah, she's playing with us a little bit.
Yeah, right from the start, hinting at the societal pressures of the time.
So she's making us question those norms right away.
Definitely.
So I guess before we really get into all that, let's just kind of lay out the plot.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone who hasn't read Pride and Prejudice.
Okay.
So we have the Bennet family.
Right.
5 daughters.
All who need to find husbands.
Encouraged, we'll say.
Strongly encouraged. By Mrs. Bennet, especially.
Oh, yes, their mother.
Yes. She's very focused on getting them married well.
That's putting it lightly, maybe.
Yes. And so, Mr. Bingley.
The wealthy Mr. Bingley.
Yes, he moves into the neighborhood, so that's a big deal.
Yeah, a prime opportunity for Mrs. Bennet.
Definitely. But it's Bingley's friend, Mr. Darcy.
Yes, Mr. Darcy. Even wealthier.
And more reserved.
Much more reserved.
Yeah. But that's who we're really interested in.
And, of course, Elizabeth Bennet.
Oh, yes.
Their first encounter, it isn't exactly a meet cute. It's Elizabeth overhears Darcy saying she's, quote, not handsome enough to tempt me.
Ouch.
Yeah. I can't imagine that went over well.
No. A little bit of animosity after that.
Understandably.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of sets up the Pride and Prejudice thing.
Yeah, for sure. So Elizabeth judges Darcy, but it's through her own pride.
Right.
Thinks he's arrogant. And Darcy, well, he's kind of blinded by his social standing, so he doesn't really see Elizabeth.
He doesn't see her worth.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what the whole book's about, right?
His journey from misunderstanding to understanding.
Exactly.
It's a good one. And, of course, the plot. It's quite a ride.
It is.
So we have the Bingley and Bennet drama.
Yes.
But then there's Wickham.
Oh, yes.
He's charming, but
a villain.
Oh, yes, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells these tales about Darcy.
Trying to make him look bad.
Yeah, saying he's cruel. And Elizabeth, of course, believes it.
So more prejudice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Wickham's, he's a really interesting character. He represents the dangers of just looking at the surface.
Oh, yeah. You can't just go by appearances.
Right. Because Wickham, his actions, particularly with Lydia.
The youngest Bennet sister.
Right. He elopes with her.
And that's a problem.
A big problem. It affects the whole family.
Right.
Their reputation is at stake.
Yeah, could ruin their future.
It's a scandal.
Definitely a scandal. And they would have been ruined.
If not for a certain Mr. Darcy.
Oh, right. He saves the day.
He does, but
secretly.
Yes. And this really forces Elizabeth to rethink things.
Oh, yeah. She has to really look at her own judgments.
About Darcy, specifically.
Right. Because he really shows himself.
Yeah. His actions, they speak louder than words.
Totally.
And this is where we see the Pride and Prejudice kind of unraveling, I guess.
Yeah, for both of them. Because they both have to confront their own flaws.
They do.
And biases. For Elizabeth, that happens when she gets Darcy's letter.
Oh, yes, the letter.
Yeah. Explains everything. About Wickham, about himself. It's a turning point.
Big time.
Yeah.
It's like she finally understands.
She sees her role in everything. It's a big moment for her character.
Yeah. This is self-reflection. It's brilliant.
It is. And then Darcy.
Yeah.
He's willing to humble himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
To help Elizabeth. So we see a change in him, too.
So they both grow.
Yeah.
And change.
And that's what lets the love story happen.
Exactly.
But of course, Pride and Prejudice isn't just a love story.
No, it's more than that.
It's about character, societal pressures.
Yeah, the complexities of relationships.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these other characters.
Absolutely, because, we have Elizabeth and Darcy,
The main players.
but there are others,
Mm.
like Jane,
Yeah.
the eldest Bennet sister.
Right.
She's sort of idealized.
Yeah, the perfect woman.
Kind of,
Yeah.
but she's also very strong, wise.
Yeah, in a quiet way.
Exactly. And her relationship with Bingley.
Totally different.
Oh, yeah. From Elizabeth and Darcy.
Yeah, less tumultuous.
Definitely. And there's Mr. Collins.
Oh, Mr. Collins. We can't forget him.
No. He's so awkward.
He's a social climber.
Oh, yeah. And Austen uses him to make fun of society.
Yeah, her satire. That's great. And he's after Elizabeth.
Right, but then he marries Charlotte.
Charlotte Lucas,
Yep.
right.
And that shows us, how limited things were for women.
Even intelligent women.
Exactly. Even if they were smart, like Elizabeth.
Yeah, or Charlotte. They still had limited options.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a great example of how Austen uses humor, to make a point about society. Like, he's obsessed with Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Darcy's aunt.
Oh, Lady Catherine. She's quite a character.
Yeah, she really represents that, that old way of thinking.
The aristocracy.
Yeah, all about social hierarchy, and she wants to control everyone.
Especially Darcy.
Yeah,
Mm.
and her trying to stop Darcy from being with Elizabeth, well,
It really shows that clash, right?
between what society expects and what people actually want.
Right. Individual choice.
Exactly. That's a big theme in the book.
And speaking of clashing expectations, we can't forget Wickham.
Oh, no.
I mean, he's so charming. Even Elizabeth gets fooled,
Yeah, he really plays on her prejudice against Darcy.
which just makes things more complicated.
Yeah. But Wickham's a manipulator. And what he does, especially to Lydia,
It's really damaging.
yeah. When they elope, that would have been it for her back then.
Social suicide.
Yeah. And it shows how vulnerable women were. Like, if you break the rules, there are serious consequences.
So Austen's not just writing a fun romance, is she?
No, she's definitely critiquing society.
Okay, so let's dig into those themes a little more, starting with marriage.
Right.
It's not just about love and Pride and Prejudice.
Right.
Oh,
No. Marriage, it's social, it's economic.
right. It's about security, social standing.
Yeah. And inheritance, of course.
Right.
Like all that pressure on the Bennet sisters to marry, well,
Yeah, where does that come from?
it's because their estate, Longbourn, it's entailed.
Entailed.
Yeah.
So I think maybe for people who aren't familiar with 19th century English law,
Yeah.
can you explain what that means?
Sure. So entailment, basically, it means that the property can only go to a male heir.
Right.
And Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, no sons.
Right.
So when Mr. Bennet dies, Longbourn goes to a distant relative, Mr. Collins.
Oh, right, Mr. Collins.
Yeah. And that puts the Bennet sisters in a tough spot.
Yeah, without a good marriage.
They could end up with nothing.
Wow, so the stakes are pretty high.
Oh, yeah. And Austen shows us how that affects everyone, like Charlotte Lucas.
Right,
She marries Mr. Collins, but not for love.
right. For security.
Exactly. But Charlotte, she's practical. And Elizabeth, well,
Elizabeth's different.
she won't settle.
Yeah.
She rejects Mr. Collins. And at first, Darcy, even though they're wealthy,
So she wants love.
she does, but it's risky.
Yeah, I mean, look at Lydia.
Right.
She runs off with Wickham, doesn't think about the consequences.
And almost ruins her family.
It's a cautionary tale.
Yeah. You can't just follow your heart all the time. You have to think about what's right, what's responsible.
So marriage in Austen's world, it's not just about the couple.
No, it's about the whole family, society.
And it's all tied to wealth and class.
Absolutely. Like Austen shows us that hierarchy, very rigid. Your wealth determines everything, your social standing, who you can marry.
Yeah, like Lady Catherine. She's the top, right?
Yeah. She's got the power, the privilege, and the Bennets, they're gentry.
But not as high up.
No. And that's important for understanding Elizabeth and Darcy.
Right, because at first, he thinks he's better than her.
And she thinks he's arrogant.
So they both have these prejudices.
Yeah, because of their social positions.
Darcy's inherited his wealth.
Yeah, old money or aristocratic family. And Elizabeth, well, she's quick to judge.
He is.
Doesn't see past that first impression.
And even the type of wealth matters. Like,
Yeah.
Darcy inherited his, but Bingley.
Bingley's is new money from trade.
And people treat them differently.
Oh, yeah, like Caroline Bingley.
Bingley's sister.
She's always trying to, make her brother seem more important by being close to Darcy.
The social climber.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Austen's so good at, showing us those little details.
Yeah.
About how wealth and class affect everything. People's behavior, how they see each other.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
But Pride and Prejudice is also about how people grow.
Oh, yeah. It's about self-discovery.
Like Elizabeth and Darcy, they both change so much.
They do. They have to face their flaws, their biases.
Right.
And for Elizabeth, that happens when she reads Darcy's letter.
Yeah, she finally sees the truth about Wickham.
And about Darcy.
It's a big moment for her.
Yeah, she realizes she was wrong.
And that her pride got in the way.
Exactly. It's humbling.
It is.
And then Darcy,
Yeah, he changes too.
he does. He sees that he was arrogant, that he misjudged Elizabeth, and he starts to act differently.
Like with Lydia.
Yeah, he saves her family, even though it could hurt him.
He's not so proud anymore.
No, he's learned.
And that's what makes their love story work.
It's not just romance. It's about becoming better people, understanding each other.
It's a good one.
Mm.
And I think that's why people still love this book.
It's so relatable.
Yeah, we all struggle with Pride and Prejudice, right?
Right. In ourselves.
And in the world around us.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about Austen as a writer.
Okay.
She's so witty, so smart.
Yeah, she gets those little nuances of how people interact.
And one of the things she uses is free indirect speech.
Right.
I always struggled with that in school.
It can be tricky.
Can you explain it?
So basically, it's like the narrator's voice is blended with the character's thoughts.
So we're in their head.
Yeah. Like we see the world through their eyes.
So with Elizabeth, we feel what she's feeling.
Exactly. Like when she's at the ball watching Darcy,
Right.
we see her judging him, but then her curiosity.
And eventually, how her view of him changes.
Exactly. Austen does that so well, makes us feel so close to Elizabeth.
And the irony. She uses it all the time.
It's brilliant. It's subtle, but it points out all these absurdities about society.
And hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah. Like, think about that line from Elizabeth about Darcy not being handsome enough.
It's funny, but it also shows her pride.
Yeah, she's judging him so quickly. And Austen knows it. Like, she's sharing a joke with the reader.
Yeah, it's great.
And it makes us question things, look beyond the surface.
Then the letters.
Oh, yes.
They're so important.
For the plot.
And for understanding the characters.
Right. Because in the letters, we see what they really think. Like Darcy's letter to Elizabeth.
It changes everything.
He explains himself, tells the truth about Wickham.
It's a turning point.
Yeah. And it shows how communication is key, even if it's not face-to-face.
Right, right. So before we move on, I was just thinking about the book's history.
Okay.
Didn't it have a different title originally?
Yeah.
What was it?
First impressions.
First Impressions.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting because...
It fits with the themes.
Yeah, how we judge people based on first impressions.
Mm.
But Elizabeth and Darcy, they learned to look deeper.
Exactly.
So Pride and Prejudice, the final title.
It's about more than just those first impressions.
It's about the journey.
Yeah. And changing, growing.
It's a good title.
It is.
So Pride and Prejudice, still popular all these years later.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? I mean, especially for students of literature. Yeah, it just feels so real, you know, like even though the world she's writing about is so different from ours.
Right. All those customs.
Yeah, they seem so old-fashioned now, but
But the stuff the characters deal with.
it's still relevant.
Totally.
Love, family, you know, feeling pressure from society, trying to figure out where you fit in.
It's all still there.
And Austen's so good at mixing that social satire with characters that you really care about.
You do.
You're laughing at them one minute, but then the next, you're like rooting for them.
Totally.
I think that's why Elizabeth Bennet is such a popular character.
Oh, especially for students.
Yeah, when you're reading it for the first time, you get her.
She's so smart.
And independent.
But she makes mistakes.
She does.
But she learns from them.
Yeah, she grows.
And that's what the whole book is about, right?
Yeah, overcoming those prejudices.
And she's not afraid to challenge what society expects of her.
No, she's not.
She's a great character to study, like from a literary perspective.
And Mr. Darcy.
Oh, yeah.
He's become this, like, the ultimate romantic hero.
He has.
But he's kind of complicated.
He's not just, a simple good guy.
Wow.
He's got that pride. He can be aloof, but
But he's also got integrity.
he does.
And he's generous.
And he can love.
Yeah, he's capable of change.
He definitely grows.
And their relationship, it's amazing how Austen takes them from, like, hating each other
Yeah, this
to understanding each other.
and then love.
And you believe it.
You do.
Austen makes you believe it.
She's that good.
And it makes you think, like, second chances are possible.
Yeah, you can overcome those biases.
Even the really deep ones.
The ones you don't even realize you have.
And she does it all with this wit, this elegance.
Her writing is just beautiful.
It's a joy to read, even when she's making you think about these, like serious issues.
It's not just entertainment.
No, it makes you think.
And I think that's another reason why it's still relevant for students today.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Well, you can look at it from so many angles.
Like what?
Like feminism, social class, how ideas about romance have changed over time.
So every generation can find something new in it.
Exactly.
It's one of those books that just stays with you.
It does.
You finish it and you want to talk about it.
Argue about it.
Yeah, figure out what it all means.
That's what makes a book great, I think.
It sticks with you.
It makes you think.
It makes you question things.
And come up with your own answers.
So I guess what we're saying is
Pride and Prejudice.
it's more than just a romance,
It's a social commentary.
a deep look at character.
It's beautifully written.
And it's a story that people still connect with.
Even centuries later.
So as we wrap up here...
I want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
Does Pride and Prejudice ultimately critique society, or does it just kind of reinforce those norms?
Good question.
What do you think?
I guess we'll leave that for you to decide.
Read the book.
Form your own opinions.
And hopefully this deep dive has given you some things to think about.
Along the way.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Happy reading.